Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Glad to be back.
We've got a pretty interesting company on our radar today.
Yeah.
Innodata,
INOD.
trading under the ticker symbol INOD.
That's right.
And this is a company that has really kind of caught my eye recently.
Absolutely.
Because it seems to be riding the wave of all these hot trends we keep hearing about, you know, artificial intelligence,
Right.
data engineering,
All the buzzwords.
all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And what's so interesting about Innodata is
Yeah.
they don't just kind of like dip their toes in these areas. They are like deeply embedded
Right,
in the world of data and AI and all that.
right.
So that makes them a potential gold mine for investors.
Okay.
But, you know, as with any company that's in such a fast-moving sector,
Sure.
there's always a level of risk involved.
Of course, of course.
Nothing's a sure thing.
Right, exactly.
But definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, and it's February 10th, 2025,
Okay.
as we're recording this, and Innodata closed today.
Right.
At $44.34,
Not bad.
up 3.38%
Oh, wow.
for the day.
So a good day.
So a good day, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That puts it pretty close to its 52-week high
Mm-hmm.
of $55.17.
Interesting.
So I'm curious, does that suggest that we might be seeing some resistance at that level?
It's definitely a point to watch.
Okay.
You know, that 52-week high could act as a ceiling for the stock price
Okay.
in the short term,
Yep.
at least.
Yep.
But the fact that, you know, it's been kind of flirting with that level,
Right.
that tells us that there's considerable investor confidence
Okay.
in Innodata.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not like this is some, you know, flash in the pan success story.
Yeah.
You know, Innodata has been on a pretty steady upward trajectory
Yeah.
since way back in 2000.
Wow.
So that long-term performance,
Mm-hmm.
does that give us any real insights
That's a great question.
into the underlying strength of the business? Or
Yeah.
could it just be a matter of, you know,
Just being at the right place at the right time.
right place, right time? Right.
Yeah. I mean, while the long-term uptrend is impressive,
Sure.
you know, we need to dig a bit deeper.
Okay.
You know, is this growth driven by genuine innovation and market dominance, or have external factors played a larger role?
I see.
You know, it's worth noting that the
Yeah.
tech landscape has changed dramatically since 2000.
Of course. Yeah.
What worked then might not be a guarantee of future success.
Right. Right. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Speaking of digging deeper, you mentioned something earlier about trading volume
Uh-huh.
being a bit unusual today.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
So today's trading volume was about 1.7 million shares.
Okay.
Which is actually below the average volume
Well, yeah.
of 1.72 million.
Interesting.
Now, this could signal a few things.
Right.
Maybe the stock is simply taking a breather before its next move upwards.
Okay.
Or it could suggest that some of the bigger players,
Mm-hmm.
the institutional investors, are starting to cash in on those gains.
Okay, so lower trading volume,
Mm-hmm.
potentially a sign of caution from the big guys.
Could be.
That's definitely something for individual investors like our listeners to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
But let's zoom out for a second.
Okay.
Why should someone who's maybe not super familiar with the tech world
Right.
even care about a company like Innodata?
Yeah.
What's the big picture significance here?
Well, you know, whether we realize it or not, AI and data are transforming pretty much every industry you can think of.
Yeah, that's true.
And Innodata is right at the heart of that transformation.
Okay.
They're not just building the technology,
Mm-hmm.
they're helping companies actually use it to solve real-world problems.
So they're kind of like the bridge between
Yeah.
the complex world of AI
Mm-hmm.
and the everyday businesses that need to utilize it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that puts them in a pretty powerful position. You know, if these trends continue, and all signs point to that being the case,
Right.
Innodata is incredibly well positioned to grow right along with them.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
But of course, as you mentioned earlier,
Sure.
there are always risks.
Always.
What are some of the things
Yeah.
that could potentially derail Innodata's success,
Mm-hmm.
even if these broader trends continue?
Well, one of the biggest risks
Okay.
for any tech company is
Yeah.
simply the pace of change.
Right.
What's cutting edge today
Mm-hmm.
could be obsolete tomorrow,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Innodata has to constantly innovate and stay ahead of the curve,
Right.
or they risk becoming irrelevant.
So they can't just rest on their laurels.
No, they can't rest at all.
Right.
Um,
And it's not just about the technology itself, right?
right.
They also need to be able to execute
Yes.
their business strategy effectively.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're growing rapidly, which is great,
That's
but
right.
it also creates challenges.
Yeah.
They need to manage that growth carefully,
Okay.
making sure they have the right talent, the infrastructure, the processes in place to be able to scale up without losing efficiency or quality.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I'm hearing a lot of buzz
Mm-hmm.
about Innodata's upcoming earnings report,
Right.
which is due out on February 20th.
Big day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are analysts expecting? And what kind of impact could this have on the stock?
The anticipation is definitely building.
Oh.
Analysts are projecting earnings per share of 22 cents for the quarter.
Right.
And if they hit that target, that would represent a 340% increase
Oh,
compared to the same period last year.
340%.
Yeah.
That's a serious jump.
It is.
But can they really pull it off? I mean, that's a pretty high bar to clear.
It's worth noting that Innodata
Yeah.
has a bit of a track record
Okay.
when it comes to exceeding expectations. Just look at their Q3 2024 earnings. They blew past their projections
Wow.
with a 400% positive surprise.
400%.
Yeah,
Okay, so they've got a history of overperforming.
they do.
That's definitely a good sign.
Yeah,
But help our listeners understand this a bit better.
sure.
What does this earnings buzz actually mean for investors?
Yeah.
Why should they care?
So earnings reports are
Okay.
often catalysts
Yeah.
for stock movements.
Right.
And if Innodata meets or even beats these already high expectations, it could send a very strong signal to the market
Okay.
and potentially trigger a surge in the stock price.
But on the flip side,
On the flip side, if they fall short,
yeah.
we could see a pullback.
Okay.
Investors can be unforgiving,
Right.
especially in a sector as volatile as tech.
Yeah, no kidding.
So it's a high-stakes moment for Innodata.
It sounds like it.
That's for sure.
But is this all just hype? Is there real substance behind Innodata, or are we just getting caught up in the AI frenzy?
I think it's more than just hype.
Yep.
Innodata's recent moves,
Yeah.
particularly their push into generative AI
Okay.
and large language models, combined with the fact that they're securing major contracts
Right.
with big players,
Yeah.
suggests that they're not just riding the wave, they're actively shaping it.
So it's not just talk, they're backing it up with action.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the numbers tell a similar story.
All right.
Their Q3 2024 revenue was up a massive 136%
Wow.
year over year.
That's huge.
And they have a very healthy return on equity of 43%.
Okay, so those are strong numbers.
They are.
All right, so we've got the fundamentals looking pretty solid,
Yeah.
but let's dive into the technical side of things for a moment.
Okay.
Can you break down what the technical indicators are suggesting about Innodata,
Sure.
but in a way that our listeners who might not be chart wizards can grasp?
I'll try to keep it simple.
Perfect.
One of the simplest but most useful indicators is the moving average.
Okay.
And Innodata is currently trading above both its 50-day and 200-day moving averages.
Okay.
This is generally seen as a bullish signal,
Right.
indicating that the stock has upward momentum.
That sounds promising.
Yeah, it's a good sign.
But I'm sure there's more to the story, right?
Of course there is.
Technical analysis is never that straightforward.
Never that easy.
Right.
It's important to look at multiple indicators
Okay.
and not rely on any single one in isolation.
That makes sense.
For instance, the Relative Strength Index, or RSI,
Okay.
which measures the speed and change of price movements, is currently around 75 for Innodata.
Okay, so what does that 75 tell us?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
An RSI above 70
Okay.
is often considered overbought.
Overbought.
Yeah.
Okay.
It suggests that the stock might have risen too far too fast and could be due for a pullback
Okay.
or correction in the near future.
So a bit of a mixed bag there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Anything else we should be keeping an eye on
Sure.
from a technical perspective?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's always wise to pay attention to support and resistance levels.
Okay.
You can think of these as floors and ceilings for the stock price. For Innodata,
Yeah.
we're seeing support around $39.11.
Okay.
This means the stock has historically had trouble falling below that price.
Interesting.
Resistance, on the other hand,
Yeah.
is a bit more layered.
Okay.
We have a recent high at $45.02,
Mm-hmm.
which could act as resistance.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's that 52-week high of 55.17 lurking up there.
Right. Right. Yeah. So those are some key levels
Yeah.
for investors and traders to watch.
Absolutely.
So to bring it all together,
Okay.
what's the bottom line for our listeners who might be considering adding Innodata to their portfolio?
Well, Innodata is undeniably well-positioned to capitalize on some of the most powerful trends shaping our world.
Yeah.
AI data, digital transformation, you name it.
That's the long-term view.
Yeah.
But in the shorter term?
In the shorter term, all eyes are on that upcoming earnings report on February 20th.
Right.
It has the potential to be a major catalyst.
Okay.
Sending the stock on a significant upward trajectory or downwards.
No pressure, Innodata.
Right.
And, of course, we can't ignore the broader market factors we talked about earlier.
Of course not.
Competition, especially from China, and overall economic conditions.
Yep.
Those are wild cards.
Those are big wild cards.
I could throw a wrench into even the best companies' plans.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot to consider.
A lot to consider.
But that's not all, folks.
Oh, there's more.
We'll be right back with even more insights on Innodata.
Looking forward to it. All right. You know what's fascinating? How Innodata manages to balance this cutting-edge AI focus with a surprisingly long history.
Yeah.
They're not just some overnight sensation.
Now that you mention it.
Yeah.
They have been around longer than a lot of people might realize.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
They were founded way back in 1990.
Wow.
So they've already weathered their fair share of tech storms.
Right.
That experience is invaluable in a field that's constantly evolving.
Of course, yeah.
They've seen trends come and go, and they've adapted. That gives them a certain edge.
It's like they have the agility of a startup, but with the wisdom of a seasoned veteran.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But let's zoom in on the competitive landscape a bit.
Okay.
You mentioned China earlier.
Yeah.
And how they're becoming a force to be reckoned with in AI.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah.
What are we seeing specifically?
So China is investing heavily in AI and data technologies, and they have a few key advantages. First, they have access to vast data sets, which are crucial for training AI algorithms.
Right.
Second, they have a government that's very supportive
Interesting.
in AI development. This combination is creating some formidable competitors.
Okay.
Especially in areas like machine learning and natural language processing.
So how is Innodata responding to this challenge?
Yeah.
Are they feeling the heat?
I think they're being very strategic about it.
Okay.
Rather than trying to compete head-on in every area, they're focusing on their niche strengths.
Okay.
They're doubling down on areas where they have deep expertise and a proven track record, and they're emphasizing their global reach and ability to serve diverse industries.
So it's a bit of a David and Goliath situation.
Kind of.
But Innodata is leveraging its unique strength to stay in the game.
Exactly. They're not trying to be everything to everyone. Instead, they're focusing on what they do best and differentiating themselves through specialized services and deep industry knowledge.
It sounds like a smart strategy.
It does.
In such a competitive landscape.
It is.
We've talked a lot about the potential upside of Innodata. But for any investment, it's crucial to also consider the risks.
Absolutely.
What are some of the key risks
that
our listeners should be aware of?
Of course, no investment is without risks.
Right.
And with Innodata, one of the biggest risks is simply the inherent volatility of the tech industry.
Right.
What's hot today might be obsolete tomorrow.
Yeah, no kidding.
They need to constantly innovate and stay ahead of the curve to avoid becoming dinosaurs.
So they can't afford to rest on their laurels.
No, they can't rest at all.
Like you for a second.
Yeah. Another risk is execution. They're expanding rapidly.
Right.
And managing that growth effectively is crucial.
Yeah.
They need to make sure they have the right talent, infrastructure and processes in place to scale up without sacrificing quality or efficiency.
So it's not just about having a great product or service.
Right.
It's about being able to deliver it consistently as they grow.
Exactly. And then there are always those external factors that are impossible to predict.
Yeah. Like what?
Sudden economic downturns, geopolitical instability, even unforeseen technological disruptions.
Right.
Those are risks that every company, no matter how well run, has to contend with.
So a healthy dose of caution is always warranted.
Always.
But overall, it sounds like Innodata has a lot going for it.
Yeah.
They're operating in an exciting and dynamic space.
For sure.
And they seem to have a clear vision for the future.
They do.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
And talk about Innodata from a trader's perspective.
All right.
What are some of the key things that short-term traders might be watching for.
Okay.
Right. Because not everyone is in it for the long haul.
Right.
Some people are looking to capitalize on those shorter-term price swings.
Exactly.
Right.
As we mentioned earlier, that upcoming earnings report is a major catalyst. Traders will be glued to their screens, watching to see if Innodata can hit or beat those lofty expectations.
Right.
If they do, we could see a significant price jump.
And if they don't?
Well, if they miss, it doesn't necessarily spell doom.
Okay.
Traders will be looking at other factors as well, such as trading volume, price momentum, and any news or announcements that could impact the stock.
So it's a fast-paced, data-driven game.
It is.
But with the right knowledge and tools, traders can potentially profit from these fluctuations.
That's the idea.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that trading involves risk.
Of course.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Right. It's crucial to do your research.
Yes.
Understand the risks. And never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Could agree more.
Now, zooming out to the bigger picture, right? The macroeconomic perspective.
Right.
What are some of the broader trends that could affect a company like Innodata, either positively or negatively?
So from a macroeconomic perspective, we are seeing some interesting trends that could impact Innodata.
Right.
For example, interest rates are on the rise, which tends to make growth stocks like Innodata a bit less attractive to some investors.
Makes sense. When interest rates go up, investors often become a bit more risk averse. They might shift some of their money away from high growth, potentially volatile stocks and into more stable investments.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And then there's the ongoing trade tension between the U.S. and China, which could create some uncertainty for companies operating in the global tech space.
Sure.
Innodata generates a significant portion of its revenue overseas. So any disruptions to global trade could impact their bottom line.
Yeah, those are definitely factors to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
But on the positive side, we're also seeing a lot of innovation and investment in AI and data technologies, right?
Absolutely.
Those trends seem pretty unstoppable at this point.
Yeah, those are powerful tailwinds for Innodata.
Okay.
Governments and businesses around the world are recognizing the transformative potential of AI and data.
Right.
And they're pouring resources into these areas.
Yeah.
Innodata is right at the heart of this revolution. So they stand to benefit significantly if these trends continue.
So overall, it seems like there's a mix of headwinds and tailwinds for Innodata.
It does, yeah.
But the long-term potential is definitely there.
I would agree with that assessment.
Okay.
It's a company with a lot of promise operating in a rapidly growing market.
Right.
But as with any investment, it's crucial to weigh both the risks and the rewards carefully.
Well said. So for our listeners who are thinking about adding Innodata to their portfolio, what's your final takeaway? What's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Do your research.
Right.
Don't just jump in because you've heard some buzz about AI.
Right.
Or because the stock price is going up.
Okay.
Take the time to really understand the company, its business model, its competitive landscape, and the broader economic and technological trends that could impact its performance.
And don't forget to consider your own investment goals.
Right.
Risk tolerance and time horizon.
Absolutely.
What works for one investor might not work for another.
Investing is a personal journey.
Yeah.
And there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Great advice.
Thank you.
So to wrap things up, Innodata is a company that's definitely worth watching.
For sure.
They're the intersection of some very exciting trends. And they have the potential to deliver significant returns for investors.
They do.
But as always, it's essential to approach any investment with a balanced and informed perspective.
Very important.
Don't let the hype cloud your judgment.
Don't get caught up in the hype.
Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us for this look into Innodata.
It's been a pleasure.
It has been great having you here.
Thank you.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning into Investing Talk Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Be sure to subscribe to our channel, share this episode with your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends.
And leave us a comment below with your thoughts on Innodata.
We love hearing from you guys.
Until next time, happy investing.